Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to The Sovereign Way. It is spring. We are moving out of the season of beauty, lightness, and allowing that had us immersing in a restorative teaching series after the winter. And now we are solidly in the spring. Your springtime is guaranteed, as it says in Isaiah 35, the desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will celebrate and shout for joy. And yet, as we move deeper into our collective ascension, let's be ready for some really bizarre times coming up. So whatever you surrender into, whatever you follow in this season, whatever you give your soul to in this season, must be verifiably trustworthy. And as you are a spiritual pioneer yourself, you also need to develop the muscle to hold your mindset and your vibration and your authority in Christ when the going gets tough. So we're now going to move into yet higher levels of spiritual development as we prepare for a very strange year of changes ahead. Now, remember, the ultimate goal for us here in the Sovereign Way is to hone our individually unique but universal mission as disciples or devotees of love and as apostles or heralds of truth. And as it says in Ephesians 4:12, to equip the saints for works of ministry and to build up the body of Christ until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God. So today we are unwrapping 40 characteristics of Integrous teachers and teachings of enlightenment. And these characteristics are calibrated via the scientific method through applied kinesiology and published in this work here, which is The Map of Consciousness Explained by Dr. David Hawkins, which is published by Hay House 2020. And we're going to sink into a deep permission to embody by osmosis and by inner activation and to live in these ways. So today we're unwrapping these characteristics and we're soaking in these characteristics and we're activating these characteristics from within. And this is going to help you identify integrity in the leaders whose wake you surf, right? Because no matter how ascended you think you are, you need leaders. We all need leaders, and you need to ensure that those leaders are verifiably trustworthy. And it will also help you hold that same integrity in your own teachings and in your own offerings to the world. And then as we go deeper into the series over the next few weeks, we'll get into manna, we'll get into alchemy, we'll get into higher gifts, and we'll get into devotion. And all of these teachings will be immersed in the unquenchable devotion to love, anchored in biblical law and love for our beloved Christ. So as we go through, I'm going to read these characteristics straight from the book, and I'm going to add my own observations and commentary. I'm going to ask you for your observations and commentary as well. So as we go along, take a note of what you recognize in yourself as a teacher of truth. And I don't necessarily mean a cognitive teacher of truth. You are a demonstrator of truth. You are a liver of truth. You are a noble devotee of truth by the nature of your being. So as we go through this list of 40 characteristics, take a note of what you recognize in yourself. And in fact, if you hear something and you go, yes, that's me, I do that, type it in the comments, because then we can magnify and glorify God working among us and through us. And I think we'll be surprised to find that it's not as lonely as we think, that there are more of us in this body of spiritual integrity. All right, so are you ready? Here we go. 40 characteristics of integrous teachers, and teachings, as calibrated by consciousness researcher Dr. David Hawkins and outlined and published in this book. Number 1, universality. Truth is true at all times and places, independent of culture, independent of personalities or circumstances, right? Truth transcends these things because these things are form, they are manifest substance. And truth, of course, is universal. So you can recognize truth in all the forms that it takes and all the ways that we try to beclothe truth so that we can relate to it. We can find truth in culture, but truth is nonetheless universal. Truth is the alpha and the omega, and your church doesn't own it, right? First characteristic. Second characteristic is truth is non-exclusionary. So it says truth is all-inclusive, non-secretive, and non-sectarian. It doesn't use the love of God to create chasms between people. This is what it says in Colossians 3:11, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bonded or free. Christ is all and in all. Right, got it, check. Characteristic number 3, availability. Truth is open to all. It is non-exclusive. There are no secrets to be revealed or hidden or sold. There are no magical formulas. Truth is true. It is your birthright. Now, again, that doesn't mean that secrets aren't true. If someone is offering to sell you his hidden marketing strategy, he's not necessarily a crook, and his strategy isn't necessarily false. But recognize that what is being sold, and you are allowed to make a living, but what is being sold is a craft, an art, an expertise, an authority, your knowledge, your physical strength, your time. It is not truth. And truth transcends all those things. So availability. If someone says you need to do these things in order to find the truth, that's a red flag. Oh, here's a lovely bit. This is the last spiritual teaching in the Bible. It's Revelation 22:17. The Spirit and the bride say, come, and let the one who hears come. Let the one who is thirsty come, and let the one who wishes take the free gift of the water of life. Drink freely and abundantly from this never-ending wellspring of truth. Characteristic number 4, integrity of purpose. There is nothing to gain or lose. What does that mean? I'm not sure that I know what I believe, what that means. If you can write it in the comments, if you have an idea, what does it mean that truth has integrity of purpose? I'd love to hear from you. Wherever you are, write it down. What does it mean that truth has integrity of purpose? What's your view? Number 5, non-sectarian. Truth is not the exposition of limitation. And yet, we splinter ourselves off into collective agreements about how to define truth correctly. And that's why we get sects in every religion, in every spiritual lineage. We get types of Buddhism, types of Christianity, types of Tantra, types of natural paganism, types of pantheonic devotion. And it is okay to have a tribe and a family that thinks and feels similar to you, but the error is in believing that truth confines itself within a sect. And moving forward now, it's going to be more important than ever for you to hold your judgment about who is more enlightened than whom. Even the churches that you love to condemn are stewards of a particular tone of truth. Characteristic number 6, it's independent of opinion. That makes a lot of sense to us, right? As sovereign, we know that we view the world through a phenomenological reality, which is limited by our framework of consciousness. It's limited by our viewpoint. Your log of consciousness doesn't shape truth, but it does twist the presentation of truth. And yet, in the darkest depths of insanity, truth can still be found. This is Psalm 139. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. Even there, your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. I love that one. Number 7, truth is devoid of positionality. It has no position. It is only poise. So truth is not anti anything. It's not anti those guys, and it's not anti those guys. So falsehood and ignorance then are not the enemies of truth, because there is no opposition to truth. There's merely inversions and illusions. Therefore, truth doesn't need to take a position against anything. It holds its poise within all things, and all things in its presence become alchemized. That's the nature of love. So do a quick check here, I think, and check in with yourself. Are you anti anything? Are your teachings anti something? Are you in opposition to something? You don't need to do anything about it right now. Just notice, just check in. Number 8, there are no requirements or demands. There are no required memberships, dues, fees, regulations, oaths, rules, or conditions. If you're following a teacher or a church or anything like that, that has you conform to or confine yourself to certain oaths or certain regulations, or to make pledges for anything, then you can be sure this is operating below a certain standard of truth that you need in order to meet this new age in integrity. God is not meritocratic, you see. You can't buy God. You can't earn God. You couldn't possibly afford God. God already belongs to you and you to him. So it's free. Truth is free. Number 9, non-controlling. That makes a lot of sense too. Spiritual purity has no interest, this is straight from the book, spiritual purity has no interest in the personal lives of aspirants. It has no interest in dress habits, sex lives, economics, family patterns, lifestyles, or dietary habits. Jesus said, it's not what goes into you that defiles you, but what comes out. So when we agree that source, spirit, and substance are a trinity of living love, and that all things are alchemized and transmuted in that love, then we can be much less controlling about how we love. Number 10, free of force or intimidation. Again, that makes a lot of sense. There's no need to control by fear. There's no need for brainwashing. There's no idolizing leaders. There's no grueling training rituals. There's no indoctrinations, no intrusions into private life. There is no fear in love, and so there's no need for force. Jesus was non-resistant. He was open and he was allowing. Number 11, truth is non-binding. There are no regulations, laws, edicts, contracts, or pledges. Your free will is a universal truth. You're allowed to oscillate in and out of love, and yet you're also allowed to make covenant and agreement with different constellations of truth, and you're allowed to experience a richness of discovery through contract, and you are allowed to release those contracts, covenants, and your lineages and your cultures. So there is no binding regulation. There's no way you need to sign your way into truth. Making a contract. Goodness me. Number 12. Freedom. Participants are free to come and go without persuasion, coercion, intimidation, or consequence. There's no hierarchy. Instead, there is a voluntary fulfillment of practical necessities and duties. So we chop wood and we carry water together. We are sovereign. In your mind now, think back to, in your experience, think back to perhaps some different church experiences you might have had, or experiences with different spiritual leaders that you might have had, where there was a clear hierarchy of authority. Just bring to your mind what that might have been like and how close to God that felt. 13, commonality is a key characteristic of integrous spiritual teaching. Commonality. That means that recognition is a consequence of what one has become, rather than a result of ascribed titles, adjectives, and trappings. So, for example, in the Sovereign Way, we have a teacher certification and we have a master teacher certification, and this has nothing to do with worth. This is nothing to do with authority in the kingdom. This is to reflect the development and demonstration that one has accomplished in their own inner work. We often get seduced by titles. We often get hypnotized by the badges and the certificates and the golden cups. But there is a commonality in the body of Christ. It's throughout the Bible that the arm of the body is no more or less worthy than the leg of the body. We understand that, and yet we forget that when it comes to spiritual teaching, especially in the I am structure of ascension. We tend to think of ascension as very linear, and that can get us into meritocratic thought, which is the opposite of what truth teaching is. Number 14, it's inspirational. Truth teaching is inspirational. So the description here in the book, where am I, 14? Truth eschews and avoids glamorization, seduction, and theatrics. So it's giving us an as opposed to. So truth is inspirational. There's no hurry up, sign out now for the latest truth teaching from the stars or you'll miss the boat. There's none of that. But rather, truth inspires a fresh breath of what is already there. Given, theatrics may help us relax into an experience. It may help us allow our minds to open to experience. Incredible animations, for example, beautiful photos, they may elevate our imagination and open our minds and hearts to truth. But the truth itself is very, very simple. 15, non-materialistic. Truth has no need for worldly wealth. It has no need for prestige, pomp, or edifices. We often need these things, or we believe that we do at least. But truth knows that provision is an endless supply of spiritual life force that takes the shape of whatever is needed in the moment. That is true manna. And we will get into the energetics of that next week. By the way, check in again. Are you making note of the characteristics that you recognize in yourself? Do it, and you will be very pleasantly surprised about how good you really are. Number 16, truth is self-fulfilling. It is already total and complete. It has no need to proselytize or gain adherents. It doesn't need to convert anybody to it. It doesn't need to collect followers, doesn't need to collect sign-up members. It always struck me that Jesus chose only 12 disciples. That was enough. And like a flame to a flame, the truth spreads as each one opens their heart to what is already present. Do you sometimes feel like, oh my God, I need a bigger platform? I know that feeling of like, we need more members. We need more members. Go and get more members. That urgency, that compulsion isn't coming from the truth. It's coming from the need to control something. So just check in with yourself there for a moment. Number 17, detached. Detached. A non-involvement in world affairs. Wow. Now you may be in poised observation of goings on, and you may be ready to pray or to act in alignment with your core values when you see what is going on in the truth, but in the world, but as a teacher of truth, you are unlikely to adorn yourself in protester gear and initiate an insurrection. Now let me know, what do you feel about this? What do you think about what's going on in the world? When you think about what's going on in the world, you think about injustices being revealed, you think about warfare. Is it easy for you to detach your identity response? Now, it's okay as a human being to have an emotional response to something that violates your core values. It's okay to feel deep compassion, but can you detach yourself from the story of what you think is happening? And can you allow it to be? Share your thoughts on detachment. Let us know. This is a hard one. It's a hard one because we care, right? But yet, if you come into a spiritual teacher who has a very hardcore position on something, who is very attached to the happenings in the world, you can be sure that there is bias and not poised truth. Number 18, truth is benign. Now, truth is, of course, identifiable along a progressive gradient. It has no opposite, and therefore it has no enemies to castigate or to oppose. And we may well ask then, we may go, well, what about the intelligent forces of entropy and evil? What about the counterforce to ascension? And that is a valid question, and we will address that in this series. But remember that the serpent in the garden in Genesis 3 didn't oppose God's instruction, but he twisted it and then built off the inversion. So while we do not need to fear any opposition to truth, we can be poised and ready for the potential of inversion. And we will address spiritual warfare and what to do about it later down the road in this series. But truth is benign and has no fear of falsehood. 19, truth is non-intentional. Truth does not intervene. It doesn't have an agenda to propose. It does not inflict. It does not promulgate. That's a strange word in my mouth, promulgate. It does not have an agenda to propose or to inflict. There's an unfolding of truth, you see. There is a great divine plan to reveal truth, but truth in itself has nothing to gain. It simply is. So there is no intention in truth. It only is. 20, truth is non-dualistic. All transpires by virtue of intrinsic or karmic propensity within the field, this field that we are, by which potentiality manifests as actuality rather than by cause and effect. Okay, we get that. God is light, and light is both particle and wave. And that distinction is important because a wave can be spread out in space as a probability dispensed through everything. And at the moment of decision, that whole probability field collapses to a particular point. Now light isn't a potential, it's a thing. So that's the relationship between source and spirit and particularized substance, when it comes to how the Trinity manages itself. So now light isn't a potential, it's a thing, and that makes it a bit like a heartbeat. So that's the quantum reality of our form, of our manifest form. It pulsates from wave to particle to wave again, as if all of the fabric in the universe is the very heartbeat rhythm of poise to reality to poise to reality. And not only that, but all time and motion cease at the point where matter or energy vibrates at the speed of light. We already know this. This is true. And in that poised condition, all probability is suspended in a superposition state, so anything can happen. So the Newtonian idea of a linear cause and effect is true, but only within the 4 dimensions of space and time. And as we know, you are quantum. 21. Look for tranquility and peace. Look for tranquility and peace. There are no issues or partialities. There's no desire to change others or to impose on society. The effect of higher energies is innate and not dependent on propagation or effort. God does not need help any more than gravity needs the help of an apple falling off the tree. Okay, you may recognize, though, that you have an inner yearning or a calling to put your hands and heart to service for the world. We have humanitarians in the Oasis who give of themselves so selflessly, who go above and beyond to help injustices. And you've been given gifts, or you've developed skills, or you've developed expertise that you can use to support others. But you must know whether you are motivated by love or by the ego, by the sense of urgency or control that you need to use for that service. So if you sense a peace and a tranquility in your extension of love to help the injustice in the world, then that is integrous. But if you feel the need to control what's occurring in the world, then that is not integrous. I'm just checking in on the heads in the Oasis here. Everyone's still present? Good. Good. Well done. Keeping up. 22. Equality. Equality. This is expressed in reverence for all life in all its expressions and merely avoids that which is deleterious rather than opposes it. So equality. Now, if we understand that God is source, spirit, and the substance of all things, then all things are equal in that holy body of love. The sun shines on all things equally. So let me ask you, are you above somebody in your life? Are you below somebody in your life? I want you to type in the comments. Type either I am above, or I am below, or we are equal. Choose which of those 3 statements is the truest for you and type it in. And read each other's comments and feel the friendship. Number 23, look for non-temporality. Good awareness, guys. We know the difference between what we feel and what we know to be true. Yeah. Non-temporality. Life is realized to be eternal and physicality to be temporal. So in the truth teachings that you're looking for, notice that life is not subject to death. There is only life and more life, forever and ever. Even, in fact, even in the highest logs of consciousness, in around 850 on the scale, if 0 is complete despair and 1,000 is completely integrated knowing that I am, at 850, where the great sages of the ages, where they log, there is an identity with the void of nothingness, the great existential emptiness. But even that must be transcended, because even nothingness must come to realize that God is beingness. There is only life and more life. So if you come across a teacher or a truth teaching that proselytizes death, or that life is temporal and death is eternal, then you've stumbled on the wrong path. Nontemporality is a characteristic of truth. In John 5:24, Jesus says, "Whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life. And he does not come into judgment, but has passed from death to life." So place your faith in the embodied love, and you will know life everlasting. 24, truth is beyond proof. Truth is beyond proof. That which is provable, and this makes a lot of sense to us, we understand this. Whatever is provable is linear, limited, and a product of intellectualization and mentation. Of course, we make equations out of it. Reality needs no agreement. Reality is not an acquisition, but instead is a purely spontaneous, subjective realization when the positionalities of the dualistic ego are surrendered. We get that. So what is provable is substantive and particularized. Now, that doesn't mean that what is proven is devoid of truth. It just means that it is already limiting truth by having been made actual. So no one can say to you, I have the entire truth and I can prove it. They may have experiential proof. They may be able to put some beautiful poetic words to truth as they have come to understand it, but there's no equation that will ever measure up to the glory of God. 25, it is mystical. That's important. The origination of truth is a spontaneous effulgence, a radiance and illumination, which is the revelation that replaces the illusions of a separate individual self, the ego and its mentation. You know, 75% of the New Testament was written by Paul, and he received his knowing of the living Christ by inner revelation, not by learning from the disciples who had the authority because they were qualified. And I think it speaks volumes that the new way paved by Jesus is personal, mystical revelation, and that our very scriptures are given by this process. And that's why when you read the Bible, whether you read the canonical text or the apocryphal texts or the Gnostic texts, read it with lectio divina, the eyes of the Spirit, for it is indeed a living word that works within your mystical gnosis. Truth is mystical. 26, truth is ineffable, which just means you can't define it. Radical subjectivity is experiential, as part of it being mystical, right? It's a condition that places the former ego-centered condition. With this event, context replaces content, devoid of temporality and beyond time. Now, it is ineffable, but we do our best to use language to understand and synthesize and formulate truth. And this is how we relate to one another. Our minds are linear, but they are also gifts of God. So while we can never truly describe truth, I say we're allowed to give it a punt. And that's what art is, that's what poetry is, that's what philosophy is, that's what theology is. But we are understanding that none of these things have the capacity to define the definer. 27, it's simplistic. One sees the intrinsic beauty and perfection of all that exists beyond appearance and form. This is a high level of sentience, but beauty is an expression of God. So if you can see beauty, you can see God, and God is in all things. And so the invitation here, therefore, is to see simple beauty in all things. 28, truth is affirmative. So truth is beyond opinion, it's beyond provability, and confirmation is purely by mystical, personal, subjective awareness. However, it is identifiable by, they've said, consciousness calibration techniques. It is identifiable by affirmation. We know that. We can recognize truth. You recognize truth. Your body strengthens, your heart leaps, your eyes glint when you stand in the presence of truth. You can affirm it. Look at you smiling. You can affirm truth. What do you notice when you're in the presence of truth? Think about your experience right now. Do you feel it in the body? How do you tell? Share it with the others. Type it in. How do you tell the truth? You can affirm it. It says right here, truth is affirmative. Share your ways. "29. Truth is non-operative. Truth does not do anything. Truth doesn't cause anything. Truth is everything. Spirit, on the other hand, which is of truth, is the innate power of love in motion. Spirit is operative. That is the inner agency of becoming. But truth is a poised singularity. Oh, we're getting some great feedback in the comments here. Yeah. Everything from muscle testing to feeling it in your own body to feeling the sensation of, we've got goosebumps, the spirit lifts. Yeah. Truth is affirmative. Number 30, truth is invitational as opposed to promotional or persuasive. You know, truth has no need to control, and it doesn't need you to conform to it. And yet, God is forever calling us. God is luring us into him, a sacred invitation to drink freely from that wellspring and to come home into that sacred unio divina, the divine marriage of Christ. But it is an invitation, never a coercion. 31, it's non-predictive, because because reality is non-linear. It cannot be localized or encoded in restriction of form, such as secret messages, codes, numbers, inscriptions. It cannot be hidden in runes, in stones, the dimensions of the pyramid, the DNA, or the nostril hairs of a camel. Truth has no secrets. The reality of God is omnipresent and beyond codification or exclusivity. Codes are indicative of human imagination and are not indicative of the capriciousness of divinity. And yet again, that doesn't mean that these linear interpretations are devoid of truth, because we humans communicate thusly and we express truth in our art forms and our schools of thought. And if source, spirit, and substance is one, then indeed you can commune with truth through substance by true relation with that substance. The error is believing that truth is confined to these things. For you could find as much truth in a ladybird on a leaf as you could in a sacred scroll or a tarot card deck. Number 32. Actually, before I move on, I want to hear from you. Are there items or stones or cards or dimensions or scriptures or whatever that you use to divine truth? And do you feel like you have a sense of freedom within that structure to commune with truth, as opposed to being dependent on that structure to find truth? See if you can distinguish that. I would like to hear your thoughts on that, because I know we have all kinds of practices here. Yeah, someone says numerology, right? You can certainly commune with God through numbers. He speaks mathematics very, very well. And yet we are not slave to those numbers. You cannot encode or encapsulate truth in those numbers. Okay. We have 32. Truth is non-sentimental. Non-sentimental. Emotionality is based on perception. Compassion results from discernment of truth. We get that. Emotion, we know, is a biological response to external stimuli. So your sentimentality, although it may feel lovely, like nostalgia or that sentimental sense of completeness that you get within your family setting, it may feel lovely, but we recognize it as a subjective vibrational reality, not ultimate truth. That makes sense. Number 33. Oh, there's a bit of numerology for us. That's the signature of Jesus in my life. 33. Let's see what Jesus has to say. The truth is non-authoritarian. That's very Jesus to say. The truth is non-authoritarian. There are no rules and no dictates to be followed. All right, that makes sense. I don't have anything else to say on that. Number 34, non-egoistic. Teachers are respected, but they reject personal adulation or specialness. Idolism is one of my pet peeves. Now, the best pastors that I have seen in churches, the very best preachers, they always refer to the cross, not to themselves. And in referring to the cross, they are referring to Emmanuel, the omnipresence of divine love in human form. That is what we look for. That is who we look to. So take a moment to think about your own teachings and your own offerings here, and just assess for yourself, to what extent are you positioning yourself as an icon, as an idol to worship? And to what extent are you positioning the truth as the beacon of love, so to speak? And don't just think about your own self, also think about those you look to. Think about the leaders in your life, the ones that you are inspired by. To what extent are they pointing to the ultimate truth before they point to themselves? 35, truth is educational. Truth provides information in a variety of formats and ensures availability. So what does that mean for you? How will you ensure in your offering, in your devotion, that you're not just saying stuff, but you're actually providing a structure for people to follow so that they may be educated and developed along an internal landscape? There's a little bit of a dynamic there for us to juggle. Truth is educational. Number 36, truth is self-supporting, neither mercenary nor materialistic. Is there a distinction here between being self-supporting and the characteristic number 15, which was non-materialistic? Tell me if you can sense a distinction between being self-supporting and being non-materialistic. And then transpose that into your own life. And notice whether you ever feel that kind of rising anxiety about how am I supposed to provide for myself if my teachings are to be non-materialistic and self-supporting. And notice that the question, how am I supposed to, notice that that question is linear, and we already have decided that truth is quantum. So just notice for yourself that distinction. 37, truth is freestanding. That's interesting. Truth is complete without dependence on external or historical authorities. This is a very interesting one. So when you look to teachers or you look to leaders for your spiritual development, look and see if they are freestanding. Are they complete without dependence on external or historical authorities? Are they independent and sovereign as a voice for truth? Or do they need their liturgy to be written for them by many, many hierarchies of corporate institution? Please forgive my judgment. 38. Truth is natural. Truth is devoid of induced, altered states of consciousness or manipulations of energies by artificial exercises, postures, breathing rituals, or dietary rituals. In other words, truth has a non-reliance on form or physicality. There is no need to invoke entities. There's no need to invoke others. Now, these are all practices that may be healthful for the mind. It may be healthful for your energy field or for your body, to eat in a certain way, to walk in a certain way, to induce whatever breathing rituals that are good and meditative for you. But understand that none of that is a prerequisite for truth. Truth is not subject to any practice at all. The truth is whole and complete. That's number 39. It is devoid of exploitation or gain. There is nothing to be gained from the point of truth. It is complete. And number 40, non-violent. Truth is non-violent, not coercive, thoroughly benign, and non-threatening. You know, all throughout the Bible, all violence is considered an offense against love. It's considered an inversion against humanity. And scripture is utterly rich with verses about non-violence. But I love this description of what life is like in the enlightened state. So this is in Isaiah. This is chapter 60. He's talking about Zion. So we're talking about an enlightened state of being in the kingdom. And this is what he says. Instead of bronze, I will bring you gold. I will bring you silver in place of iron. I will bring you bronze instead of wood, and I will bring you iron instead of stones. So in other words, everything's upgraded, right? He says, I will appoint you peace as your governor and righteousness as your ruler. And no longer will violence be heard in your land, nor ruin, nor destruction within your borders. But you will name your walls salvation and your gates praise. No longer will the sun be your light by day, nor the brightness of the moon shine on your night. For the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your God will be your splendor. Beautiful. So in this lovely, lovely verse, in this lovely description of Zion, we have a structure. There are walls, and they are called salvation. There are gates, and they are called praise. And you're not dependent on any physical thing at all, but only the love of God. So, my friends, thank you very much for being here today and for watching that. That was 40 characteristics of Integrous truth teachers and truth teachings. So you want to be looking for those characteristics to help you discern truth whenever you are to follow something or someone, or you're looking for a solution, or you're looking for a threshold or a way through a threshold. Look for these characteristics And also notice in yourself which of these characteristics are already active in you and in your life, and magnify those, glorify those, and share the celebration of those with others. And you will find that the journey into the strange times ahead of us will not be so lonely. And you will develop that muscle of sovereign poise and authority in Christ. So did you enjoy the teaching? Type yes in the comments, and let's celebrate together. Have a really, really wonderful, wonderful week. And I'll see you next week. Remember, this season is about the training that we are undergoing as disciples and apostles of truth. We are really learning to flex the muscle of authority here. So carry on with us for the next few weeks. We'll talk about manna, we'll talk about alchemy, we'll talk about adventuring, we'll talk about devotion, and it's going to be fantastic. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. I'm going to turn off the live stream and we're going to go to the Oasis and we're going to hang out. Bye-bye.